Okay, you are live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pillar 3 Advisory Committee. I am Olivia Pearson, College Readiness Supervisor for Prince George's County Public Schools. And I am joined by the committee today, and I will turn it over to the co-chair, Mr. Murray.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Olivia. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kirkland Murray. I'm the local workforce development director for Anne Arundel County, Maryland. Also represent the Maryland Workforce Association, which is the association of the 13 workforce boards in Maryland. And I would turn it over to Dave Harper.
Thank you, Kirkland. Glad to be here today from Chesapeake College on Maryland's beautiful Eastern Shore. And I invite Nona.
Hi, good afternoon. Nona Carroll with the Maryland Business Roundtable for Education, currently in Hanover, Maryland, but of course we serve all 24 school districts. And I'll turn it over to Robin.
Hi, everyone. Robin Werner, Talbot County Public Schools, Director of Teaching and Learning. And I will hand it over to Christy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christy Dreyer, Vice President of Academic Programs at Cecil College and the current chair of the Maryland Community College CAOs. Now I'll turn it to Gretchen.
Hi, everyone. Gretchen Cheney, Policy Analyst with the AIB. I'm here with my colleague, Libby Diamond, who is not on camera, but available as well.
All right, so we have a packed agenda this afternoon. We're going to start with some AIB updates and then continue our conversation from last month's meeting. Have some highlights from one of our counties, Harford County, as it relates to what they're doing with career counseling. And then we'll discuss our plans for the future for fiscal year 26. And so I will turn it back over to Gretchen for the AIB updates.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a few things to share from the AIB side. Just looking ahead, the AIB adopts updates to its Blueprint Comprehensive Implementation Plan annually. So those are going to be due, there'll be a new version out due by August 1st. So we're starting to solicit feedback from the public, and we're actually going to make the June Advisory Committee meeting, this next meeting, we'll be taking public input on that as well. And there is a survey on the AIB website for those that want to weigh in on things that might want to change in the Blueprint plan. And that will also reflect any legislative changes that happen this year too. So that is an ongoing process and it's starting now. So feel free to look for that on the website. And then in the career counseling space, we've had a lot of things going on. So just want to give an update there. We're doing check-in calls with our other state partners, with MWA and with CT committee and with MSDE. We're checking in with all the counties across the state to see how career counseling is going after sort of year 2 of implementation. We did this last year. We found it very helpful to get updates on spending and hiring and implement, how it's working at the school level. So those are underway. We've done probably at least half of them already, but we probably have another 10 or 12 to go over the next few weeks. And when those are finished, and we'll do kind of a high level takeaway and some lessons learned from what we've learned, but we're sort of still in the process. So I don't have anything to share at the moment, but we will. And also could share, career counseling's gotten a lot of attention lately. I was highlighted at the past AIB board meeting on the 15th last week. We had a panel about 30 minutes of the meeting was dedicated to career counseling, to hear from coaches and administrators across the state. They gave some really good examples and good stories. So if you want to look for that, it was a very good conversation. Similarly, this week we had a CCR, College and Career Readiness, Community of Practice meeting yesterday that focused solely on career counseling, kind of on sort of summer plans and looking ahead to next year. So they talked a lot about summer school efforts and also how the coaches were going to spend their time planning over the summer. And that we highlighted 3 counties there. So I can find that recording if it's not available and share it. And then finally, I would say the AIB just on Friday released to the partners the annual report template. Every year there's an annual report due to the AIB. It's due on June 30th. Then there's a fiscal component that's also due, but that's not due until the fall in October. So the template for the first annual report went out on Friday, and it looks very similar to last year's. It asks sort of similar kinds of questions about staffing and training and coaches in schools, caseloads, those kinds of things, how career counseling is being individualized for students and meeting student needs. I think that two elements that are the newest this year are talking about business and community engagement, sort of partners that they're working with and trying to get a sense of like numbers and how involved is it business and community partners in career counseling. And then there's a whole new section on metrics, student outcome metrics to try and understand, how are we reaching students at which grades? Are they, doing career assessments? Are they engaging in field trips and different activities? Are they making post-CCR plans? Are they making post-graduation plans? All of those data points were organized by the CT committee over the winter, so shouldn't be a surprise to folks. And we did make notes, if it's not available, that's fine. Just give us your best data and know that these are some things we're going to be tracking in the future. So hopefully that's clear in the template that went out. If there are any questions, you can let us know. But that should have gone out to the Blueprint coordinators and the main program leads on Friday. So lots going on in the career counseling space. And then I just have two quick updates from the MSD side of things to highlight in case folks are interested. MSD has a section on its webpage for career counseling. For CTE and the CTE program content standards. And so there's a period of time when I was seeking comment on those new content standards. And so you can find a link in the webpage. And I think it's linked here in the agenda as well. And the end date for public comment is June 16th. So you've got about another month if anyone wants to look at those content standards. And then finally, we noticed there's a new policy document around the comprehensive arts pathway, which is a new post-CCR option for students focused on arts and music and those kinds of things. And so it's been introduced, and there's a document there that's linked as well in the agenda around guidance and details about this new pathway. So I wanted to make sure we shared that as well. I think that covers it on my end. I know that was a lot, so if there are any questions, please let me know.
Wow, that was a lot. Thanks, Gretchen. A lot of updates. Career counseling, we are very busy in the career counseling space. And so I'm going to turn it over to, I guess, the rest of the committee, because there's some things we need to talk about as a leftover from last month, which was the updated CCR standard. The other piece is, of course, career counseling updates. And so I don't know if we want to continue with the career counseling. Kirk, are you ready to chat about that first, and then we can follow up with the CCR options?
Sure. So the main thing I wanted to talk about is on April the 28th, Monday, April the 28th, we had a convening with all the career counselors. We had almost 400 career counselors at the Maritime Institute up in Linthicum Heights. This was coordinated by a group of the leads of career counseling that wanted to have an opportunity to bring all the career coaches together to network, get to know each other, but also share best practices. We started the day off with Dr. Aaron Williams from SREB, Southern Regional Education Board, that really kicked the day off right. I mean, Erin, I've had the opportunity to present with her and hear her speak several times. She gets the Maryland model, and she really salutes Maryland for being a leader in this. And really, the three-way partnership between the LEAs, the local workforce boards, and the community college. She really always, even when she's traveling outside in other states, she really talks about this model and how it's working. So she really set the tone for the day. And it really was a way to really motivate the career coaches and to really get them excited about the work they're doing, because they are doing God's work. They are making a difference. And then the rest of the day were different areas sharing best practices about what they're doing to really help other areas that may be struggling in one area to learn from others. So it was a great event. Maryland Workforce Association, we partnered with them to put this on. We handled the logistics on this, and we were very happy to do this. We're looking at how do we continue this? How do we continue with the professional development of the career coaches, of the frontline career coaches, and really give them those opportunities. I know that the Maryland Workforce Association, and I can send more information out, is doing a training with a group called TAG Grants for career coaches to really help them get the credentialing behind that. And then, of course, what we've done every year in in September, during Workforce Development Month, the Maryland Workforce Association puts on its Raising the Bar conference. This year, we're doing a little bit different. Instead of having a pre-conference, we have dedicated a youth forum that we're going to be having. This is going to be held at Maryland Live in Hanover, Maryland. And so we're really going to focus on both in-school and out-of-school youth. Again, having those best practices for the Blueprint career coaches to learn from each other, but also talk about that connection between out of school youth, as we know that some of our students, much as we're doing career counseling, they may still need some help once they graduate from high school. So how do we really do that connection with not only local workforce boards, but other organizations that are out there working with young adults and doing that connection? So very excited about that. I will continue to share more information about that and get it out to people. But as everyone says, career coaching is up and live and living in the state of Maryland. I think all areas are doing it a little bit different, but all are doing it what really meets their local needs. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
And sorry, Kirk, I think I missed it. Did you say that was part of Raising the Bar, or that's a different event?
So it's going to be part of Raising the Bar. So
Okay.
usually in Raising the Bar, we've done a pre-conference. This year we decided to not do the pre-conference, do this youth forum.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Do you have dates for Raising the Bar by any chance? I'd love to hold the date with some of my team.
Yes, I believe it's September 8th through 10th. It starts on that Monday. Let me just double check that date real quick, but I believe that's the date. Yes, September 8th, 9th, and 10th. So that youth forum I was talking about will be on the 8th of September, and then the main conference is the 9th and 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting it in the chat.
All right. Anything else about career counseling before we move to the CCR benchmark update? Okay. I am going to turn it over to Dave and Christy to kind of spearhead us as it relates to the updated CCR.
Thank you very much, Olivia. And thank you, Kirk, for the report. We're excited about Raising the Bar. It's really awesome. Every year, it's a great gathering with wonderful opportunity for networking and a lot of great sessions and vendors too, really. So just briefly, like I'm not authoritative really on this in the way Dr. Kincaid, but I wanted to show a couple of the slides he shared last time and then make a comment and invite any other comment. And then we can move on because I know we have other things to talk about in a cool presentation. But this, you see a little bit of the history of the CCR standard in as much as it has expanded access for students. Initially with the interim standard only, it was a relatively small percentage of students testing in as career and college ready. And then added to that, instead of just one singular assessment, the MCAT, for example, you add in GPA, and suddenly you're testing in the 50 percentage point. So it really expanded that access because, GPA is that long-term effort. And when you allow students a long-term, lots of different kinds of assessments and opportunities to demonstrate that they're college and career ready, more can demonstrate because no single assessment can capture every kind of unique human ability and personality. So what Dr. Kincaid, what he presented last time around really did show how that's continuing to expand. And so forgive the busy slides. These are the 3 that we have from MSDE that kind of show changes in evolution through kind of a red line edit. And there are A through I, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, options and methods for students in the proposed shifts that have been adopted by the board for students to demonstrate college and career readiness. And so I won't go over them comprehensively because we've already done that in our last meeting. But you've got GPA included. You have standardized assessments. You have APIB options. You've got the standardized assessments that also include the SAT and the addition of PSAT, for example, including the ACT. And then work keys, and then the state-approved IRC, industry recognized credential option, the completion of a registered apprentice at the high school level, and the ASVAB military assessment. So, I mean, we just commend this. I know community colleges, for example, have been talking about many keys for the same door because you give people different options to show their readiness, because no single assessment could ever capture all the different spectrum of human ability. So we commend this expanded access, and just wanted to make a comment that with that, we'll have to think carefully as we partner through those career coaching MOUs, through those LEA and community college relationships. We'll have to really partner well to ensure that that expanded access also comes with expanded student success options. And so, for example, if I'm a student who has used one particular key, even though it opens the same door, college and career readiness, whether that's a welding credential or another CTE credential, or whether that's the ASVAB assessment, or whether that's completing certain dual enrollment courses, that when that door opens, that the pathway the student is on, that there's been really careful advising to make sure that the key that student used, that the history and the academic background of that student has prepared that student well to be successful in the pathway he or she chooses going forward. So I hope I didn't overqualify that. Basically, if I've completed an apprenticeship and then I suddenly turn left and go pre-med, I might need to take some intervening classes first to make sure I'm going to be successful. So I'll pause there.
Thank you. Dave, you actually summarized that beautifully. I was kidding that I could just say ditto, and it would be, I think the only thing I'll add is that I think Dave's point is well taken. It's about student success, but we're thrilled that there's been some attempt to define more likely career readiness, because that's been something Dave and I've been harping on a lot, that we've only talked previously about academic readiness. And there's a whole other range of skills and students that will be very successful. And so I do, we applaud the effort. We're thrilled. I just shared Dave's one slight caution. We want to be sure that students are prepared to be successful in the path they choose. And if they do choose to make a very different change from their initial path, what other supports do they need to be successful in that path?
So I would like to say ditto also. I mean, I know that when we first start talking about this CCR readiness, it was very limited. And it was focused more on academics than our students really, truly college and career ready. So I think MSD gets some kudos for relooking at this and expanding this. So I really think from a workforce development standpoint and looking at our students ready, no matter if they're going to college or directly into the workforce, are they prepared to go into the workforce? I think this would give students more opportunity. So I think this is excellent.
I just have to share from the LEA perspective, the only issue is it does not align to the timeline of Blueprint when it comes to us being held accountable for students being CCR at the end of 10th grade. The roadblocks from an LEA perspective, I mean, I agree with everything you all just said. It's much more inclusive. It gives lots of different pathways. As I've heard Dave say before, it gives many more keys to open the door. Like, totally agree to all of that. But where we're going to run into issues as an LEA is it's like we have two different sets of rules. So for example, MSCE's definition says that we can provide students who earn an IRC. That is considered being CCR, or students who earn AP or dual enrollment credits in certain areas. That's considered CCR. However, Blueprint says that they have to be CCR at the end of 10th grade to have access to those pathways. And I believe it's year 2030 or whichever year it is. And I know that's far out, but that is a true barrier. Like, what do we, how do we give them access to getting CCR that way when they're not deemed CCR according to Pillar 3 and Blueprint? So I have to call that out, that it's not aligning, because it puts LEAs in a really tough spot.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin.
Do we want to give that feedback to Dr. Kincaid? Because I think Robin's point's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that the LEAs have definitely provided feedback on. I think that I feel like, personally, this is not an MSDE issue. I think MSDE aligns to all of the things that our group has brought up over the last couple of years with our concerns about CTE. I feel like this is an AIB Blueprint issue, with the timing of it. Like, I don't think that like that is out of MSC's control. Like, their definitions and having all these different pathways in different times makes sense. It's all the things that we have been saying about focusing on career. I mean, they even have the different assessments, like work keys, like all of those things are the things that we've been asking for in this committee. I hate to say it, but I think the problem with it is Blueprint is not as inclusive when it comes to all of those different ways in the different time periods, because it is saying that they need to be CCR at the end of 10th grade. And unfortunately, a lot of these opportunities aren't offered to them at that time because they have to be CCR to do post CCR pathways. MSCE is not viewing, according to this definition and my interpretation, it's not viewed as like a post CCR thing. It's more of students who engage in these courses, when they show success, that is what we're seeing as being CCR, if that makes sense.
So Robin, is your recommendation is that you take that CCR ready part to by the time they graduate? I fully understand what you're saying about that 10th grade, because it does say students have to be CCR ready in the 10th grade to do a post CCR pathway. But do we want to make that CCR designation by 12th grade? By the time they graduate, they are CCR ready.
And I
Okay.
know it's not that easy. It's legislation, there's funding and all these things. I almost wish there were two, and I believe I brought this up before, that there were, because I do think it's important. I think the intentionality of the 10th grade was to hold LEAs accountable, that we're keeping track of our students and their success, and that they're on grade level and that they have a path. Like, I really do believe that that was the intent, and I think that's important. I think where things are muddy is by calling them CCR at the end of 10th grade is not realistic. And I think that MSC's definition proves that, because they're showing that a lot of these things happen in different grades after 10th grade. So I wish that there was a way that, like, at the end of 10th grade, LEAs are still held accountable. Like we say at CCR, I hate to say track, like on track, but to show that our students are on track for CCR. And if they're not, we need to provide support. But to actually have that definition and deem them CCR at the end of 10th grade, I think that MSC's language and their definition and all of that supports all the things that this committee has been saying for the last couple of years, that at the end of 10th grade is not matching up. So yes, end of CCR by the time having CCR by the time they graduate, and here's all the ways they have, and then at 10th grade having some sort of checkpoint. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think that if that were cleaned up, and I know that's not an easy thing, I understand that's legislation, there's a lot to that, But I truly feel like if that were cleaned up of having CCR by the end of 10th grade or by the time they graduate and having some other definition or metrics or whatever we call it in 10th grade would be so much better for LEAs to be able to align with all the things that we have from both MSCE and Blueprint.
Yeah, I think the intent was the reason why they said that 10th grade was because if students weren't, you still had 2 more years to get them ready.
Right.
So you still had the time to do that. So I
And
think
you need a plan to support them.
right. So I'm wondering if this is something that could be identified. I know that we have not talked about this, but I know MSD is looking at rolling out this 6-year plan. Is this something that we can address in that 6-year plan or something like that? But I think your point is a very valid point and something that this committee may want to talk a little bit more about at some point and make some recommendations to the AIB on how to address this issue.
Robin, I totally agree with what Kirkland is saying, and I'm trying to pencil in to our notes in our shared document. So if you could take a look at that and correct where I've got it the verbiage confused, just so we capture as much of that for feedback as we can.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? I'm just curious, Robin, did you look at because this is something we've been puzzling about, right? They defined that MSD said, students who haven't met CCR shall have initial access to post-CCR pathways. Have you looked at that language, and does that, well, it's got the first 2 years of CTE, it's got up to 2 AP or IB classes, or up to 2 dual enrollment classes. Does that help answer some of the kind of access questions, or do you feel like there's still some more clarity that's needed?
I still think there's some more clarity because when I have looked at the new CTE framework, a lot of our students are going to be taking their IRCs at the end of 10th grade. So they're going to need to take, we're looking at restructuring. They're going to be taking multiple CTE classes. We have kids that already take CTE and AP classes early on. Like, I hear that. I think that it would just be, I still stand in my belief that I don't think students are meant to be CCR at the end of 10th grade. Like, I think that being college and career ready, they still have 2 years. There's a lot to learn in those 2 years. Can't think of a definition right now or a name that we would call them. I just feel like that there's like 2 phases of this, right? Like there's the phase that we have of after they've been with us for 2 years and have had their state assessments, like that's a point in time. And what do we need to do to continue to support them? There's just something about it. And I know you all have heard me say this a million times. As someone who has worked in middle and high schools, my career, I don't think it was designed for students to be college and career ready in 10th grade, because if they were, why were they there for 2 more years? So I don't know. Like, I hear what you're saying about that we can provide access, but it just seems very muddy to me. It doesn't seem like there's a clear, like, we're looking at this for end of 10th grade and then when they graduate.
I think there was a name that was in, it might have been the PZAM recommendations for legislation that gave a renaming of CCR ready so that it didn't discredit the students for whatever journey they're on. Because when you're thinking about, if I'm a student and I'm going and I'm, participating in my education, and then in 10th grade, I'm like, oh, you're not CCR, but someone else is, when everybody really is on the journey because they're in 10th grade, they've got 11th grade, they've got 12th grade. And so I'm trying to find the document that was given as it relates to what that recommendation was. But I think that I see so much validity in what you're saying, because how do we support students where they are and not like make them feel bad for whatever journey they choose to take, or however it is, by doing some of the naming in a certain way?
Right. And the other piece to it is the funding part, right? So we're receiving funding for students who are deemed CCR in 10th grade. So that also gets complicated because if we're allowed to provide access prior to that, then we don't have that they haven't been given the CCR designation yet, but then we're providing access to those courses that we don't have the funding for. And I know it's always going to be a catch-up game. I'm just have to throw that piece out too, where it's very complicated for LEAs.
It's true that there's a resource question, or if you're expanding access, are you also expanding success? Are you also increasing resources? So there are a number of things I think that give us opportunities to speak into the 6-year comprehensive plan, for that due date that's coming up. I'm interrupting though mostly to say that we should probably allow our launch partners to present because we're almost 10 minutes into their time. Are there any final thoughts we should say before we move forward? These are good points, though, for us to consider providing meaningful feedback and coherent feedback to AIB as a committee. So thank you.
Gretchen, can I ask you to introduce our folks from Hartford since my video is not working today?
Sure. Yes, we're going to transition to, we've got a nice group of folks here from Hartford County. We're going to talk about what's called Launch, which is their career-driven support program for every student. And I don't know if I've got all my cameras on to see folks, but I believe we have Katie Ridgway, LaWanda Brown, and Becky Pensero here. Is that right?
Yes. Yes,
Super.
we do. Good afternoon.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. We are from Hartford County. All three of us are extremely passionate about the career, college and career readiness space. So I imagine all three of us listening to the conversation all of you were just having, definitely used all of our restraint to not jump in and also offer our perspectives, because that conversation you were having was incredibly important, and there's a lot to unpack, especially as it relates to the work that we're doing. So my name is Katie Ridgway. I am the Chief of Staff of Hartford County Public Schools, and I am our Blueprint Coordinator. I am joined by LaWanda Brown, who is our Supervisor of School Counseling, and Rebecca Pensaro, who is our Coordinator of Supplemental Instruction and Career Programs. Becky, are you going to share the presentation view?
Yeah, I thought I was, but
Got it. It's up.
Can you see it?
Well, I can see it, but it's not in the presentation view.
Ah.
Oh, hold on.
Which it's fine if that's
Well, I don't use Zoom a lot. I use Teams. All right, let me just share it by
well, while Becky's sharing that again, I thought I would just kind of ground why we wanted to come. One of you spoke in your conversations just now about the 6-year plans, and you guys talked about career coaching. You talked about how to get to CCR. You talked about a lot of things that are involved in the development of this online tool that we have for our students. We call it Launch, and it is an individualized career and academic plan for all of our students. And it was created and spearheaded by the two wonderful ladies that we have with you this afternoon. Can you go to the next slide, Becky?
Is it still not in presenter mode?
It's not, but it's fine.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. So one of the ways that HCPS has interpreted our task for the Blueprint is that we want all of our students to either be employed, enlisted, or enrolled when they leave high school. So this kind of fits all the areas that we think accompany college and career readiness, where you can be enrolled in higher education, you can be employed with a career that has progress opportunities for you, or you could be enlisted in the armed services. And this is how we frame all of our work that we do. We call our CCR work our North Star initiative, because that is the North Star that we're trying to reach for our students. You can go to the next slide, Becky. So we started our North Star work prior to the blueprint actually getting signed into law, although the Kerwin Commission and everything was fully watched and appreciated, and we knew what was coming. And so one of the things that we started to do was really think about how do we orient all of it to career, regardless of if you go to college or regardless of if you go to the armed forces or whatever it is that you do, all of it is something that leads to a career. And we've also started the mindset of how do you do that starting in kindergarten, where all the things that we are doing, whether we have learner attributes where students are readers, writers, problem solvers who are healthy and employable. We have a continuum of K-12 for our learner attributes. We're infusing future ready skills into our curriculum and starting project-based learning, especially in secondary. And then those kind of foundational things lead you to a whole host of options. Some are post-CCR pathways and some are pre-CCR pathways, but ultimately they all lead to career. But we also are tasked with making sure that we are giving that individualized attention to our students, and that is where Launch was born. So I believe, Lawanda, are you first?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. So when we think about Launch, as a counselor, I think about planning. So Launch is a comprehensive student-centered digital tool and platform designed to support individualized academic and career planning. It assists students in evaluating and navigating their journey toward college and career readiness by addressing key components such as goal setting, exploration of post-secondary opportunities, academic planning, financial literacy, aid awareness, and the development of essential 21st century skills. In essence, Launch is a plan. Beginning in grade 7, students engage in the development and ongoing refinement of this personalized plan for their academic and career goals. Each year, this process is guided through structured activities by the school counselor and by teachers. Throughout this journey, students receive continuous support and feedback from a team of adults, including counselors, career coaches, career navigators, educators, and parents to ensure the successful implementation and the achievement of their individual plans. That's Launch at its core. It is a plan for each student each year. So when we think about why this is good for students, it goes back to much of my days early as a counselor of sitting with each student one-on-one and developing a plan. So the why is this initiative empowers students to begin their journey toward college and career readiness earlier in their academic experience, especially when we're talking about 7th grade, by establishing clear goals and structured support. By the end of grade 10, students are positioned for a long-term academic and post-secondary success. So when we think about what are those factors or those student achievement goals that will occur, we will have improved ACT and SAT performance, increased PSAT participation, and of course, receiving scores now for the PSAT toward college and career readiness, higher AP exam, pass rates, successful completion in dual enrollment courses, consistent school attendance, having a counselor and more supporters at the school level to talk to students about their attendance and help them find a reason to belong to the school will increase attendance, among other things. These factors serve as a measurable benchmark that reflect a student's preparedness for life beyond high school. So it is a plan to get students from point A to point B. Now, Ms. Rebecca Pincera will explain the initial things that we did for this particular school year in the implementation of Launch. with a brief live demo.
Great. Thanks, Lawanda. Good afternoon, everyone. So Harford County Public Schools released our initiative of launch in February of this year, where our school counselors, our career coaches, and other school staff met with students in grades 10 through 12 who are not CCR. And as you know, for our current 10th graders, they can't be considered CCR yet. So those 10th graders were not necessarily on the path to becoming CCR. During these one-on-one meetings, they focused on setting goals for the third and fourth quarter of this school year, where they focused on increasing attendance, passing the MCAP, as well as increasing their GPA. And these were put in place to, the effort was put in place to design a way for all students to be successful. So going into next school year, and I'm sorry if you hear the fire bell in the background. Can you guys hear it? You can? Okay. That's perfect. So next year, the launch initiative is going to have some enhancements, which is going to include the new college and career readiness standards that were just released this past February. But for today, we are going to take you on a brief demo so you can see what our students experienced within the launch initiative that we set forth. So I am going to try to switch screens here.
While Becky is switching screens, I just want to highlight that although we started with that we targeted the students who we had missed prior for our career coaching and to get those students who were at the end of their high school career, this is actually a tool that's designed for 7th through 12th grade. But we had to start somewhere with an implementation, and that was our priority place to start. And so as this rolls out and as this gets going, it will be our 6-year plan for students.
Thanks, Katie. So as students enter our student planner, which all students have access to their student planner in Harford County Public Schools, there's a new button that's called the Individual Career and Academic Plan. So once students select their own individual and academic plan, and full disclosure, this is my child, so I'm giving permission to show her personal information. So students will be able to see their individual career and academic plan summary, where it'll give them a brief description of what their GPA is, how many credits they've earned so far, as well as if they are deemed CCR. She's a current 10th grader, so by default, she can't be deemed CCR yet. So you'll see the red circle with the letter N for not being CCR. Across the top, the next tab will be the student's credit requirements. Sorry, this happened to me when I was doing a test before. It'll take me 2 seconds. I think it logs me out. Okay. So the second tab, students are able to see all of their credit requirements. So what course was taken in what school year and how many credits were earned. They're also able to see their career completer, career pathway, and their service learning hours, as well as where they rank in their class and their GPA, their unweighted and weighted GPA. Also on the screen, as you can see, there is their current schedule with the classes that they're currently taking. The next tab is going to give an overview of completer requirements. So students here are able to see the CTE programs in which are available, in which they are enrolled, what courses they have completed, and then what courses are suggested in the subsequent years that they take to complete that pathway. So you see here, Biomed, she started by completing these 2 courses, and then over the next 2 years, she's got to complete the suggested courses to fulfill that requirement. And there are several to choose from. Next is where students will actually go in with their counselor, their career coach. And for this year, we stuck to just the 3 academic goals. One was increasing GPA, passing the MCAP, and increasing attendance. So she went in and she chose her 3rd quarter goals, which was to increase her GPA as well as her attendance. And then there's an action plan in which she was going to carry out with the help of staff members in her school in order to reach those goals. So you'll see she made a 3rd quarter goal with an action plan of enrolling in the school's tutoring program, as well as regularly consulting with her teacher. And then for quarter 4, again, she wanted to focus on increasing that GPA and continuing that tutoring program. The last tab that is And our current version is the North Star Outcomes, and this is where students are able to outline what they're interested in career-wise. So our Workforce Investment Program, here are some of the offerings that we have in workforce investment. So she should be able to put her interest here, if she was interested in dual enrollment, and then what that action plan is that she could work with the career coach in order to fulfill those interests. So after students save the ICAP, whether that's the North Star tab or the academic goals, all of this information gets uploaded where school staff, principals can upload this information, filter it, sort it. Okay, what students want to focus on attendance? How can we help these students increase their attendance? What resources do we have in the school? How can we work with families in order to help students increase their attendance for that goal? And the same with all of the other 2 goals. So I am going to go back.
Becky, as you're going back, can you also share some of the things, since this was just the initial rollout, some of the things that are in plan for the future?
Absolutely. And LaWanda, please feel free to jump in at any time, but we have increased the academic goals. So we just had the 3 focus areas. We've worked with school principals and counselors to kind of come together as a whole to have other academic goals included within the ICAP, as well as additional academic action plan steps.
And I can chime in a little bit.
Oh, go ahead.
Most of those goals, the majority of those goals, actually all of those goals are academic achievement goals. So there is a data point in which we would be able to pull. Also, this version, we began second semester, so it was 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. But for the updates to begin in the fall, in September, we will begin at the beginning of the school year. So it will switch to 1st semester, 2nd semester. So students will develop a goal. And then during 2nd semester is when we will check for progress of that goal to make sure students are able to reach the goal at the end of the school year. So it shifts. This was just the rollout. And so it will shift for 1st semester to 2nd semester. And this will begin for 7th grade all the way to 12th grade. So we're looking at students, and we will be able to see a student in 7th grade on next year will be able to develop a whole new goal and yet go back and see that they accomplished a goal. So it provides some success, some support, some affirmation for the student. And we will have about 5 goals in there that students would be able to choose from and actions that they will be able to take.
And I've heard you both mention that the next versions will also include all the new CCR measures as well. So right now you see that there are career pieces in there on options of things that kids are interested in, but to add all those CCR measures, there'll be more things for things like industry recognized credentials or apprenticeships or things like that, so that all of those offerings, students can see them and they can indicate the things they're interested in, so that the career coaches, the counselors, and the administration can be following up with them about the appropriate information at each grade level, right? So if a 7th grader is interested in something, we already know that by the time they're getting into high school.
We're also working on a parent connection piece. So when the student fills out and completes their goals for the semester, that information will be sent via email to the parents, and there's another layer there with parent involvement.
Well, we definitely know our board will like that piece for next time you update them. And you guys did a great job when you presented this to our board last week. And you guys are also presenting this to the Blueprint coordinators next week. We are very proud of this particular kind of innovation that has come, because we've heard theoretically we have to have an individualized plan. And those words are, when you don't have the logistics and the structures and the tools to do them where everybody can communicate, it can be inconsistent and there can be different things. So I'm just so proud to watch everything that you guys have created, and hope to support you and continue to showcase this so that everyone in the state can start to conceptualize their 6-year plans.
This is amazing. Is this Q&A time? Because
I think so, yes.
Thank you. Amazing, amazing work. I love how user-friendly it is. My question is, did you guys purchase this? You built it?
Our technology team built it.
It was a brainchild that came in the middle of the night. And I detailed it out and went to technology, and they said, yes, they could do it.
Which is really that, first of all, you have to know, all of our districts to get anything from your brain to reality. LaWanda is a special human being to be able to be able to get that yes so well, because her vision was exactly what was needed. Would you like us to call on people? I see Kirk has his hand raised.
So again, I agree with Olivia. This is remarkable. I mean, this is really good. I mean, I know in Anne Arundel County, we've been talking about how to do this 6-year plan and how to document it and things like that. So I think this is a great tool. I'm glad you're sharing it with the Blueprint coordinators, so many of the school systems will look at this along with the workforce boards. I guess my question is, where in Harford County, how is this being used in collaboration with the school counselors and the career coaches?
Wonderful question. I am a firm believer that students are changed when counselors have the opportunity to engage with them one-on-one, not just in a classroom setting, but literally sitting beside them and talking to them about attendance, talking to them about GPA, talking to them about their interests, and doing career exploration. That's how they're changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's already, my counselors already know that the expectation is that counselors will begin meeting with students beginning pretty much the third week of school. And they will have individual meetings with students to develop their plan. We need to start the year with a plan instead of in a proactive manner, instead of being reactive after a student has missed a certain amount of days from school or received a bad grade or what have you. We want to begin at the very beginning of the school year. And so counselors are resetting their mindset now to how they're going to manage their programs. But this will move from middle school, beginning 7th grade, all the way to 12th grade. So I'm really excited.
And with our career partner, Susquehanna Workforce Network,
Yes.
there's also data sharing and plans on how to make sure that that connection is there, and that we're utilizing whoever in the building is connected to that student to make sure that that this plan happens, but also not just that the plan happens, but that the information received from the plan breeds more opportunities for interactions and counseling with those students, whether it's through Susquehanna Workforce Network, which is our partner, whether it's through our coordination with our community college or our own internal staff.
So when the school counselors sit down to do these plans, because I agree 100% with you that this is something that has to be done one-on-one. Are the career coaches along with the school counselor and doing this plan and writing this plan and creating this plan?
The career coaches can be, especially at the middle school level, but the mind's eye is that the school counselor would take the lead, and then the information that is gathered, this information then will be available to the career coaches so that they will be able to go in and work with students as well in the development of this plan. We still have career exploration, so the career coaches will be there without a doubt, giving them exploration, and especially really heavy in our middle school area, but also in high school as well. So I'm excited about it, because to me, students will have the opportunity to truly do exploration, to truly develop a plan, and then have someone to monitor that plan so that when we get to second semester and we're thinking about, in high school, we're thinking about schedule building and choosing courses, but then that counselor's right there to talk about, let's look at your plan, let's see where we are. And the year, we still have some time within the year to make sure that student is able to accomplish that goal. So really excited about it.
You should
Something
be.
that's really
You should be.
important. Something that's really important in this conversation is whether it's an administrator, a teacher, a counselor, a career coach, or we also have apprenticeship type specialist in high school. A lot of who's going to interact most as that plan goes on will depend on the student and the things they've chosen. So as the student, if you have a student who's going towards the selective college career path, remember on our things, who they spend their time with might look different than a student who's on a direct to work apprenticeship path. The career coaches are there to connect all of those and to help make sure that all of that gets coordinated. But it's really important for all of you, and I know this is true in every district, that there is not just one person who is working towards career for students. It is a career-driven ethos that we are all working towards, that a teacher could be the one that helps a student with an action plan. A career coach could be the counselor. So we had to create a system where we know how it gets started. Like we get started with that first touch point with the school counselor, but from there, the data and the development of it can then be given to the best people to serve those students so that it's truly individualized.
And I think one of the most important pieces too is being able to loop in the parent so that the parent understands what is being done at the school level, when it is touched and when it is submitted, that the parent has that insight as well. So they can sit along with their child and say, okay, let's talk about this plan. It creates engagement at home.
I think Robin has a question.
So this is awesome. And in Talbot, we're working on building something through Power School that can do something similar. But I guess my question is, how are you built this? So I'm assuming you have to integrate it with your grading system like Power School or whatever you use. So how do you have that synced? I'm asking you some more of
Our
a
technology department, most of our applications are homegrown and tied into our student data system, which is eSchool Plus. But it also ties into our accountability system, and our district technology department prefers to homegrown more than purchase. We do, of course, purchase from time to time, but their preference is to build it themselves. Data security, getting exactly what we want and need, and things like that.
Wow. That's awesome. That blows my mind because I don't even know how you even start that. So that's great that you guys can.
They have computer programmers. I mean, we hire we have a team of computer programmers who build these
Big
things.
is that team, if I may ask, because subscriptions are expensive, and I get the investment decision there, but how large?
It's not that big. I don't know it off the top of my head. Maybe all told, we have 6 programmers. I'm not sure if that sounds about right. But they are very skilled and adept at creating the tools we need for our systems. So we, from our dashboards to our plans to even how we log in to do our personal leave, all of that has been created and built for our system and by this team. So
we don't even have 6 in our IT department in our district, alone 6 programmers.
I
So
don't
I have
want
to
to
just
get
put that in
too far
perspective.
down. So one of the things in the Blueprint world is, and this is something that I would shout to the mountaintops, is the difference for implementation of a big district and a small district can be significant. And the Blueprint isn't always conducive to those differences between different districts. A district with more resources can do something different than a district with fewer resources. And so that's always something to keep in mind when you hear about what's happening, or if you hear of a district that hasn't started, it might not be because they're not passionate and they don't want to do the right thing for students. It's because their investments and resources are different. And so that's an important thing, especially as someone who's in the community of Blueprint coordinators, to say that, yes, we have a team of programmers, and that's one reason why this is amazing. But the thing that we're here is really the vision of LaWanda Brown, and the execution of it and her collaboration and her, I'm going to get this done now, direction, because as most of you know, it takes years to do anything in schools, and LaWanda did this so incredibly fast. We've also had other similar successes. If I were to categorize between all the blueprint pillars, our most innovation has come in pillar 3. Now, we're doing great things in all the pillars, but pillar 3, our dashboards are like 9th grade on track. We now have 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade. Our on track dashboards are robust and being used in a way that we could give you lots of different presentations on all the innovation that has come from our pillar 3 work. So part of what you see is, yes, our resources, but the other part you see is a really innovative team that really was ripe and ready to do this work for kids and always wanted to do it and just didn't have that imperative to do it, which the blueprint did give us.
We hear the enthusiasm, and I just want to note that Dr. Dreyer's hand is up.
No worries. Thank you so much. LaWanda, you answered one of my questions about parents also being engaged in this. So thank you. I think that's a really wonderful supplement to this. And this is a fantastic program, by the way. So thank you. I guess my question is, do you envision students also being engaged, entering their own information further down the road? And if so, is that a metric that you're going to monitor, how often a student enters this and is engaged? Because I think that could be a really interesting dynamic, and the amount of students engaged in this and then their success or their capability to attain CCR quicker. It just fascinates me.
Yeah. Students will actually develop their plan. We have what we call the student planner. So we have a very, let's just say, massive idea that launch will just be a part of it. But students will actually sit down the way that Miss Becky Pinsera demonstrated. She demonstrated what her daughter would have gone through. So her daughter actually would log in, click on the information. She would have all of her graduation information, like graduation requirements, and she would literally do the plan. The counselor is just alongside her to encourage, to just try to talk her through it, and all of those pieces. The student actually will develop their plan and choose the action that they will follow after developing the goal.
That's fantastic. And then you'll be monitoring how often a student goes in and looks at it or checks it or updates it?
Yes, it will be monitored by different people, but the school counselor, without question, will definitely touch it twice during the school year, but more than that, depending on certain groups of students.
It could just be a really fascinating metric, how often a student goes in to view it compared to their, we'll say, success, for lack of a better word. So that's fascinating. It's fantastic. A wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love it, Dave. Any other questions for the team from Harford County with the launch system?
I just want to say it's great. I would love to have something like this as we're working on building that. So like kudos to you guys for coming up with this and using your resources. I mean, Katie, I appreciate like your point of the inequities that sometimes do come up, not to discredit like obviously this came from great innovation and ideas, but having the resources to actually, build something can sometimes show up, and when we're developing all these things. So, but this is great.
Well, thank you all. We can definitely make sure you have a copy of the PowerPoint. And Becky, can we add some screenshots to the PowerPoint before we send it out of the you can take your daughter's name out of it,
Yeah.
so that we can send it and make sure that everybody has it. We really appreciate this opportunity. As I said, 3 very dedicated people who are all in on the blueprint, who are excited to be here and support your thinking for this work as we continue to move forward with implementation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your passion.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, what an awesome platform.
Yep.
That is
very
great. I want to go in it and play in it myself.
Me too.
So yeah, that's awesome. All right, so let's look at the next items on our agenda. So our next meeting, our June meeting is going to be our public comment meeting. And so love to get any feedback from AIB, maybe to this team as it relates to how we are eliciting feedback. Is this something that we put in prior, or is this something people can just provide comment? Is that up and ready yet, or is that still in the works?
I think it's still in the works. I was not part of the AIB team a year ago when we did this, but I understand that there's be some internal conversations and we structuring or somehow organizing. We're going to do this for all the different pillar advisory committees. So I think we will have a format and a method for soliciting comments and feedback. So I guess stay tuned. There is a public comment, web form on the webpage now if anyone wants to access that, but we will sort of figure out a way to run the conversation in June.
It looks like Olivia might have. Oh, there you are. It looks like you were frozen for a minute. Sorry.
Hear me?
We can now.
Okay, I'm gonna go off screen to preserve my bandwidth. It looks like in July and August last year, we took a hiatus. And just wanted to propose that again for the team for this summer. So everyone can take a break and plan and rejuvenate. And the last item before we close is really just talking about some of the things that we should be thinking about for discussion for the upcoming year.
So I'll start that part. I think one of the things that we need to do, I know that when the CTE committee was presented the metrics for career counseling, they never really approved it because they wanted to have more conversation around long-term metrics. I would like to recommend that this committee, we have a conversation around that to maybe make some recommendations to the CTE committee on what are some of the long-term impacts of career counseling.
Tracking with you, Kirk.
So if we can maybe look at that as something that we talk about, starting next year when we come back after the summer break.
Also, there was a report commissioned, and feel free to dismiss this, but didn't legislation extend for coaching MOU and relationship through FY28?
Yes.
The review on January 1st due to the governor's office on FY20, like January of 2027.
Yes.
Any detail on what that means or what that report is?
I don't think that people have thought that far through about what that means by that. So I think it's something that as this committee may want to look into and make recommendations on that. In the legislation, there was some recommended things that they look at long term. So I think we should look at those things and have a conversation around that and really have, as a committee, make a recommendation to the AIB because I believe what it, and Gretchen, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what it did took a little bit out of the CTE committee and put it more on the AIB to make some recommendation. I believe that report, and correct me if I'm wrong, that report is really coming from the AIB and not the CTE committee.
Yeah, I guess the way that the first report that was in the original legislation phrased it as the CT committee is responsible for producing a report on best practices, and that is due this coming December.
Yes.
And then newly added as of this legislative session, it was a task for the AIB to do more of an overall evaluation of career counseling, which maybe makes a little more sense because it's been underway a little bit longer by 2027. It's a little rushed to do something kind of evaluative by CT committee's deadline. So we now have two sort of reports out there. As Kirkland mentioned, we haven't really had a chance to fully digest them, but we've done sort of an initial crosswalk of the language around what was proposed in CTE committee's original set of metrics that we are using this year for the annual report. And then this new language that was added in the legislation around AIB's responsibilities and what it needs to track. Many of them are very similar. Not entirely, the wording's a little off on some, but they're very similar. But there is a whole new task around identifying long-term metrics, not actually measuring them, but like identifying long-term metrics for the program. And it has some very specific elements to it. So that is on our plate. We have not had a chance to do much with it. And we do need to kind of, I think, coordinate with the CT committee and all of our state partners on the best way to do that. And I think we are going to task our evaluation partner that's evaluating the blueprint overall, NORC, with helping us with this new task of evaluating the career counseling piece as well. So all things to be sorted out, and I think would be a great topic for next year as we get a little farther into it.
I'd just like to offer the programming that I have in 5 of the districts. It's Kent, Caroline, Wicomico, Dorchester, as well as Allegheny. We've been doing what I like to call kind of the pre-career counseling. Our individuals work much like the career counselors, work very closely with the community colleges, workforce development boards. And so we have 8 years worth of data that we have been tracking. We have our first cohort of students who started in our programming in 9th grade of high school, graduating from college this year. So we do have some data that we, can analyze further and really just help to provide some additional insights into, a lot of what is, what we've been able to learn over the years.
So Nona, I think that would be very helpful. I think it'd also be helpful to find out how you track them through once they left high school, because I think that's when I know that the conversation that we're having in Anne Arundel is how do we track them after they leave high school?
So our career counselors, as I like to call them, but we call them program specialists or coordinators, we have an alumni program.
Yeah.
And so we continue that journey with them. And so it is, while we don't have, the thousands, a pulse on the thousands, we do have, a good percentage of sampling of those individuals that we continue to stay with and track.
Okay.
I think another thing to look at next year is with the new definition of CCR from MSCE. I'd be curious to know the different directions that LEAs are going to for support, because I do know that changed some plans that we had in our district. And I'm just curious what that looks like across the state, because it really did open up a lot of different options for providing support. So, like, for example, having a student in a CTE program is considered an IRC support, right? Which then in turn is part of CCR support. So it really became so open that I think it kind of was a surprise to some of us when it came to some of our original plans for CCR support, which were originally tailored to math and ELA specifically. So I don't know if that's something that over the course of next year, like having other, different districts share like what they're doing, what that looks like, and where we came from when Blueprint was starting, and like some of the examples that we were provided of different strategies for providing CCR support. I'd just be really interested to see what that looks like and if it's effective or not. I think the presentation we just saw is an example of that, right? And how
Mhm.
that shows up in different districts. Um, and what are some barriers that might, because, you know, immediately for me, I'm thinking of the tech piece. That's amazing that Hartford County can build all those things. That's amazing they can do that for their students. But I don't think that there's a lot of districts that can do that. So where are there barriers and what are ways around it? Like the whole time they were talking, I was thinking, well, I wonder if the shore could contract someone that could do this for all of our counties on the upper shore, right? Like building something that worked with Chesapeake College and like the upper shore, and then maybe we could afford something when you put all five together. You know, that would be similar to Hartford County. Like it just got my gears turning. Like,
Mhm.
what are some barriers that could even the playing field?
That's right. And I love that. We always do it through partnership because of our sparse population here.
Yeah. But how do we, you know, all kids deserve that program that they have, right? Like every kid in this state deserves to be able to log onto a program that looks like that and they can see their progress. And what really got me was um, the fact that you could see your whole, you know, 4-year plan of what you need to take when every time they log in, right? Like a lot of kids are only getting that when they first come in at orientation, and then when they periodically meet with their counselors, and it's not always there for them or their parents to see so clearly. Just that clarity of what is expected of them. I feel like every student in this state deserves a program like that.
And
Um,
I
you know,
wonder how Power School or X2, like, can any of those systems, do they have those
no.
capabilities?
So I'm
Oh,
working with Power School right now, and we're a big Power School
yeah.
district because we rely on that for a lot of our programming to do things for us. Power School has the ability of making your own plans, like plans that pull data, and it can do like the nightly sync. But we're still kind of digging into like who has access to that. I don't know if it's something that a student would have access to. I think it's something we can make sure that or a parent um, we could have it so that the teachers can see it and the school counselors can see it, and it can update regularly and it could pull all that data. But I think where the missing piece is having like student and parent access through it to it, and that is so important.
Robin, for
So,
me, it was the collaboration between all the entities who might touch that student who could
Right.
see it at any time and contribute to this, and the student can contribute. I mean, to me, it's that, so not only the clarity, but the collaboration to really lift that student up. I mean, that was incredible.
absolutely.
I agree.
In Prince George's, we use School Links. And our SIS, Student Information Systems, we use is Synergy, and our district doesn't provide access to outside entities to our SIS. But with School Links through career counseling, our students are able to do this type of planning in School Links, in addition to the surveys and assessments and all those things that career coaches are doing with our students. That all can be housed in School Links. And our career coaches have access, parents have access, all teachers have access. And district, as a district level person, I of course have access, but also it's nice to pull reports so we can see where we are. Like right now, we're in the midst of our senior scholarship totals and end of your senior year survey. What are you actually doing? All of these plans that you had, what are you gonna do? And so all of that is housed in School Links. And our career coaches are helping our students go through and complete that information, as well as our counselors, and we're able to kind of download those reports to see where we are.
I wish there was a way that like we could put all of that information, like what you shared, like and what Hartford County shared, and I know what we're doing in Talbot. It's like I know we've done some of that surveying internally within like CTE supervisors of sharing that about career counseling, but it's bigger than career counseling, and like because we have to have so many different plans. You know, we have to have math plans, reading plans, all these things. It would be so valuable to have like all that information in one place of what every county is using and the system that they're using it for and like how they have them together because I think it could help inform districts on like making choices, you know, because we have a contract with Power School that's a 3-year contract on some of their different products that they have. Um, and sometimes we just don't have a lot of time to figure out like all the different options or even know what some things are. So it would just be really nice to know what everyone's doing and how they're using it to piece all of this together.
I agree. And that's actually, and forgive me if we already talked about this, but because my internet went out, but that's some of the things I think for this group, it would be great for us to start doing next year.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
one thing I've realized as we're going into all these silos, there's so much cross work that has to be done. Like, I feel like we know pillar 3, even though we're all in different areas of implementation, everybody has their own spin on it. We know pillar 3.
Right.
But I think that where we need to go is what are we doing so that pillar 3 access to college in a high school? What are we doing to collaborate with pillar 2 when we're talking about high quality teachers? And how are we able to support them so they can be the teacher they're teaching these CTE courses or they're teaching these dual credit courses? I think that intentional alignment with all the other pillars. Let me tell you something that I reread all the legislation maybe 2 months ago because I just needed to get back to the basics. And I pulled out the pieces about community schools. And it was interesting because that was in this reporting we have to do. What about pillar 4 when we're talking about the other supports and all the supports needed for students and schools? How are we working with that? How does career counseling support the student who is doing a tutoring program through community schools? Are our career counselors, career coaches, are they in there supporting those students? What about the students at our alternative schools? I just feel like there's so many other ways that we need to see now that we know pillar 3, we know all the parts. It's evolving, but we know it, right? But how are we leveraging what we know? How are we working with all these other entities? Because it shouldn't be, I talk to my career coach and we talk about careers. I talk to my counselor, I talk about this. I talk to my teacher and it's this. Everyone is there to support the student. And what I've been preaching in my district that people just think, I feel like pillar 3 is the best. But everything we're doing is to support our students to be college and career ready and support them on their pathways post CCR. That's why we have pillar 1. That's why we have pillar 2. That's why we have pillar 3, of course. And that's why we have pillar 4 is to support our students. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
I agree. I totally agree. And I feel like there are other things too that actually that impact pillar 3 that aren't necessarily part of the other pillars, but are a part of implementation through MSCE that others might not know about. Like there are policies. There's a retention policy for students who are not reading at grade level for second grade. Like that, this group needs to know about those things, right? Because it goes that eventually like impacts CCR. Districts are putting together very comprehensive K through 12 reading and math plans that MSCE requires, right? Like I'm trying to find that alignment for all of these things that support that because those plans have to be well written to support students. So that, again, like you said, Olivia, so that they are CCR. And I think that like we have to kind of broaden our knowledge of all those different components of knowing some of the policies that are, you know, and we do a good job of that, of updating, like, we put what was in here for public comment for CTE and all those things. But I think that there might be like a broader like outreach for us of some things that we might need to be on top of to know that how they
Could
impact.
have a couple joint meetings.
Yeah.
But just noting that these are fantastic for next year, and I've captured some of them in the notes, maybe all. Have a look. It'll inform our final discussions in June. But I just wanted to thank you all because that was compelling. That was immensely valuable. And we are also 2 minutes past time. But it was some of the most valuable part of the meeting. So, it hurts to cut it because this is getting good.
Yeah. When is our June meeting? Do we know?
17th.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to throw one more thing in there for the notes, and that's the gifted students. So we also have to, LEAs have to write how we are providing access for students who are gifted and talented to meet CCR prior to 10th grade. And I think that's also a valuable conversation because there is also other areas of COMAR that speak to students taking college courses and all of those things earlier. So yeah.
Agreed.
Right.
Awesome.
This has been a great meeting.
It has.
Yes, it has.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Awesome.
you. All
Thanks,
right.
everybody. See you next month.
All
Take
right,
care.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.